Chapter 42. A New Mission. Understanding America from the Ground Up. 1991 to 1994. Before I moved to America, I had no clear goals. Studying abroad was simply a means to escape communism. However, everything changed upon my arrival. Inspiration ignited within me, leading to a new sense of purpose. I dedicated myself to closely observing and understanding American society from its foundations. I aimed to analyze it all: what worked, what didn't, and most crucially, why. I was fascinated by every aspect: politics, economics, education, foreign policy, defense, law, ethics, culture, media, science, and the complex interactions between individuals and their society. From the moment I arrived, I became obsessed with American news broadcasts. I eagerly followed CNN, the big three networks ABC, CBS, NBC, PRN, and C-SPAN, which provided live coverage of government sessions. I soaked up everything from round-the-clock news to intense debates and live interviews. I watched the Gulf War unfold in real time, followed every moment of the Clinton versus Bush presidential debates, and studied how American institutions operated from politics and law to economics. I also became enamored with American basketball and was utterly captivated by Michael Jordan. How could I not be, as a die-hard basketball fanatic? I told myself that if I'd been born in America, I might not turn out like Mike, but I could at least aspire to be someone like Muggsy Bogues. Despite juggling studies and work, I rarely missed a pivotal game. Initially, I didn't even know what a layup was in English. Then, after a year of religiously watching games, I mastered professional basketball's terminology, intricate rules, and strategies. Through this experience, I discovered a fundamental truth. America is a nation based on clearly defined rules of the game. Order and structure support everything in government, business, education, even sports. I was starting to understand what America was and how it operated. However, one persistent question remained. Why did they adopt this approach instead of another? I had many observations, but still did not grasp the deeper reasoning behind them. I realized that this was the next mystery to solve. Life in America felt incredibly real and straightforward. As an international student, maintaining my grades was essential for my legal status. I needed to earn money to support my family. That was it. The essentials were laid bare. One day, this realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. Back in China, every action was cloaked in grandiosity. To serve the people, to advance the nation, to build socialism, or to nurture the next generation of communist heirs. Every task had to be revolutionary, framed as sacred and noble, never reduced to something as ordinary as earning a living or caring for family. We'd been steeped in an illusion, a lofty, abstract world that never truly felt like ours. But amid our austere, almost mundane poverty of American life, I faced a jarring epiphany. My revolutionary fervor had evaporated. Those towering ideals no longer consumed me. Life was simpler, lighter, and freer. In this so-called cold, heartless, capitalist society, I uncovered a surprising truth. One could live simply, honestly, and fully. Unshackled from the weight of grandiose ideals, I marveled at how ordinary family life could yield such deep satisfaction and joy. How could it be that shedding revolution brought me closer to happiness? In Shanghai, I was officially on the clock for 8 hours daily. Yet, over 3 years of marriage and raising a child, we'd managed only one proper family outing to the park. No time was the constant refrain. Revolutionary duties ruled everything. Family was relegated to the margins, a mere footnote. I found time for my wife and child in America despite a demanding routine. I balanced over 15 hours of study and work daily while being a student, husband, and father in a foreign land. Together, we explored parks, cherished small yet joyful moments, and enjoyed the comforting warmth of family life. Was this what true life was meant to be? Lucy usually spent her afternoons playing gleefully with the neighborhood kids near our university apartment. Their laughter echoed through the courtyard, bringing comfort in an otherwise foreign land. One afternoon, she darted out to join them. Moments later, a sharp knock jolted us. I opened the door to find Lucy, tears cascading down her cheeks, sobbing as she pointed toward a cluster of children trailing behind her. June knelt instantly, her voice soft but steady.
"What's wrong? Why are you crying?"
Through hiccups and sniffles, Lucy managed,
They hit me.
The mixed group of black and white children fidgeted anxiously, their guilty looks giving them away. At last, one of them spoke up.
She was near the pond when we accidentally splashed water on her. We thought her clothes were beautiful, so we touched them. That made her cry. And she ran away.
It wasn't malice, just a childish misunderstanding. But things shifted fast. Lucy's English sharpened quickly, and she wasn't just part of the group, but leading it. The same kids who once flustered her now trailed her every step, her quiet timidity replaced by a bold, natural command. We lived on the second floor of the family dormitory. One afternoon, my mother-in-law, fresh from Shanghai for a visit, peered out the window and froze, her face draining of color. Outside, a child dangled upside down from a tree, higher than our balcony, while a gaggle of kids below whooped and hollered. She couldn't decipher their shouts, but her gut screamed danger. She dashed to the window for a clearer view and gasped, clutching her chest. The daredevil swinging from the treetop was none other than her granddaughter Lucy, executing acrobatics with fearless flair as her audience cheered. My mother-in-law stormed into the kitchen. Her voice was shrill with panic.
"Yuling, quick! Look outside! Your daughter's hanging from a tree!"
June, unruffled, kept stirring her pot, barely glancing up.
"She's fine. Let her be."
"You've lost your mind!
My mother-in-law erupted.
You've turned into an American!"
But this was life in America. Most American children grew up in an environment that blended freedom with a quiet safety net. A paradox that fascinated me. Many uprooted their lives to come here. They wanted their children to grow up unburdened by fear, unshackled by the rigid expectations and harsh discipline of the systems they had left behind. Yet Chinese parents often grumbled about American schooling. Primary education, they'd scoff, was too soft, no homework, just endless playtime. High school, they cautioned, was a minefield. Drugs, sex, and even whispers of homosexuality. Lucy was only 4 or 5 then, still blissfully unaware of these looming worries, but I'd already picked up on something odd. Talk of moral education here was scarce, almost absent, stirring an uneasy question. How did they nurture morality in this place? I rarely heard anyone talk about moral education. In China, ideological education surrounded us, found on posters, in textbooks, and broadcast from loudspeakers. We grew up repeating slogans, learning about heroes, and understanding what was deemed noble versus shameful. Even while relaxing in parks, June and I faced interruptions by moral patrol elders. But here? Where was the framework? Where were the lessons in right and wrong, virtue and responsibility? The silence left me unsettled. How was moral education imparted in a nation that prioritized freedom and was home to a diverse population? Was it left entirely to the family? To change? The question lingered in my mind, a quiet, persistent unease beneath the surface of this bright new world. Does America even have moral education? Evidently, the American government had no extensive, centralized moral education initiatives like those seen in China. American schools did not promote comprehensive moral, intellectual, and physical growth. Instead, the education system primarily prioritized academics and physical education, with minimal focus on character development as a defined objective. The state propped up no moral scaffolding. Everything seemed to revolve around personal responsibility, individual choice, and financial consequence. Profit was king. Results mattered. Ideals, if they existed, were kept quiet and personal. And yet, this was the paradox I couldn't ignore. Most Americans still seemed to possess a strong sense of morality and fairness. People held doors open for others. They apologized when they made mistakes. They gave to charity. They volunteered. They believed in justice, not just in the legal sense, but in daily life, in how people should be treated. How was that possible? If there were no structured, state-sponsored moral education, where did this sense of right and wrong come from? With its long history of law, philosophy, and religion, was Western civilization more evolved in this regard? Did it come from a deeper, invisible force, something older than any government program or classroom lesson? I didn't believe in civilizational superiority, but I couldn't deny what I observed. Still, I didn't have a satisfying answer. Not yet. Before long, Carol began inviting June and Lucy to Sunday church services. June accepted and brought Lucy along. Carol also urged our entire family to attend, but I usually declined. Part of it was practical. I was overwhelmed with coursework and part-time jobs, but deeper than that, there was something else I didn't like admitting to myself. I simply didn't want to go. The word church itself stirred unease in me. Having grown up under decades of communist ideology, having once been a loyal party member, the idea of stepping into a church felt like betrayal, not just of some abstract ideal, but of my own intellectual identity. I had long since abandoned party slogans and Marxist dogma, but still, the idea of believing in God felt regressive, even superstitious. I wasn't ready to return to what I had once been taught to see as the ignorant days of blind faith. And yet, even as I kept my distance, something gnawed at me. I had already noticed something strange about American society. The government didn't provide moral education. Schools focused on academics, not ethics. Companies existed to pursue profit, not to shape character. The media was driven by entertainment and headlines, not moral teaching. There was no centralized system for cultivating values, nothing like China's 5 Virtues campaigns, or state-orchestrated moral indoctrination. That left only one institution I hadn't yet examined, the church. What was it really? Where had it come from? Why did it still matter in a modern, secular world? The church remained a mystery. An institution I sensed held significance but couldn't yet comprehend. However, I refrained from interfering with June's growing interest. She needed companionship, and perhaps the church could give her and Lucy a sense of belonging. There was a chance Lucy would learn appropriate behavior, improve her English, and even make some American friends. Plus, they provided free meals. So why not take this opportunity? But even as I permitted it, I kept myself on the outside. Larger questions began to form at the edges of my mind. What role did religion actually play in this society? Could this be where the American sense of morality came from, not through policy or ideology, but through quiet, voluntary belief? I wasn't ready to find out, not yet. My second semester was approaching, and the demands of daily life quickly swept those questions aside. Tuition at my state university was relatively low by American standards, about $3,000 per year. But in China, my salary had barely scraped a total of $150 annually. By that measure, even a modest tuition felt like an impossible mountain. As I entered my second semester in America, I found myself on a new kind of battlefield, not one of ideology, belief, or politics, but of survival. After we left behind New York's tall buildings and relentless rush and returned to Hays, Kansas, a small, quiet town in the heart of America, I found a new definition of poverty. At first glance, it looked rural and even poor. What we discovered in Hays challenged everything we thought about poverty, because what passed for poverty in America was not what we had experienced in China. It was different, very different. For June, adjusting to life in Hays was like stepping into another universe. Fresh off the plane from bustling Shanghai, she brought with her the instincts of someone who had spent years navigating the crowded stalls of Shanghai's vibrant vegetable market. But nothing prepared her for the sheer scale of American consumer life. The first time she walked into one of Hays' sprawling supermarkets, its wide aisles lined with shelves bursting with goods, she stood frozen, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Then she turned to me and whispered, half laughing, half in awe,
This is like Disneyland for mothers.
She didn't need to buy anything. Just wandering through that abundance was thrilling enough. The sheer variety was dazzling. Back in China, markets were compact, seasonal, and practical. Here, the choices seemed endless, luxurious, almost absurd. It was a level of abundance that defied her imagination. But June wasn't just awed, she was inspired. Raised in the frugal spirit of Shanghai's post-revolution households, she quickly began to spot deals with an almost supernatural radar. Within weeks, she returned home from shopping trips, gleefully reporting discoveries like whole chickens for 20 cents a pound, or 5 loaves of bread for $1. Despite our tight budget and what we initially considered absolute poverty, we enjoyed buttered bread and meat with nearly every meal. We weren't deprived. We were somehow thriving. Then came the cabbage. One day, as she wandered the produce section, June noticed supermarket workers peeling the outer leaves off cabbages and Napa lettuce, discarding perfectly edible layers just to keep the vegetables looking fresh on the shelf. To her, it was a crime of waste. She approached a staff member and politely asked,
Can I buy those leaves?
The employee stared at her, confused. No one had ever asked to buy trash before. He shrugged, walked away, and returned with several large boxes of discarded leaves.
You want these? You can just take them,
he said. June came home beaming, her arms barely able to carry the haul.
They just gave them to me,
she said, astonished.
They didn't even want them. I couldn't carry everything. These are good vegetables. And they were throwing them away.
From that day on, we had a steady supply of rescued greens, slightly wilted. Yes, but still delicious. June turned them into pickled vegetables, stir-fries, and soups. Nothing went to waste, but she wasn't done. One day, craving sweet sesame glutinous rice dumplings, she needed pork lard. Returning to the supermarket, she asked for pork fat. The staff recoiled in horror.
We don't sell pork fat,
one said, as if she had asked for poison.
It's bad for your heart. Nobody buys it.
June, undeterred, leaned in.
You sell lean meat, right? So what do you do with all the fat?
The question cracked something open. Somehow, by charm, persistence, or pure Shanghai stubbornness, June talked her way into the supermarket's back room, where no customer was allowed. When she emerged, she was hauling multiple boxes filled with chunks of pork fat, rib ends, and lean meat cuts clinging to the bone-enough meat to last us a month. All of it was free. It had been headed for the dumpster. I stared at the pile in disbelief. How did you manage that? June just smiled. When I married her, I knew she was sharp, but I hadn't realized I had married a master of international diplomacy, the first ambassador of grassroots U.S.-China supermarket relations. And thanks to her, we never went hungry. It turned out that poverty in America was entirely different. If you knew how to spot opportunity, ask the right questions, and smile at the right people, supermarket trash bins could become a treasure trove. June eagerly made the most of her harvest. She carefully divided the ribs. Some were coated in sweet and sour sauce, others seasoned with salt and pepper, while the remainder was braised with soy, ginger, and garlic. The rich pork was stir-fried with green peppers and Napa cabbage or transformed into aromatic soups. She converted the rendered fat into golden lard, ideal for her Shanghai-style sesame rice dumplings. Even the crispy remnants from the rendering process became delightful snacks, enjoyed with a satisfied smile. Cholesterol. That word didn't exist in our vocabulary. Every cut, every scrap, was used. Nothing went to waste. She labeled and stored everything with methodical precision until our freezer was bursting at the seams. June was constantly in motion, cooking, packing, organizing, busier than ever, but always smiling. She loved it. This, for her, was a game she had already mastered. And it didn't stop there. Before long, she established a regular rhythm with the supermarket staff. Every week she returned for more boxes of vegetables, bones, and meat waiting just for her. Sometimes, the employees even set aside special items for her without request. It was as if she'd joined a secret club. Watching her move with such ease and confidence, I couldn't help but reflect on the China we had left behind, a country where, in the early 1980s, corruption was just beginning to take root in its most primitive forms. Backroom favors, family connections, special permissions, it all felt so familiar. And yet, here was June, steering through a capitalist society on her own terms, without spending $1. She was transforming our household from immigrant poverty to something much closer to abundance, all while exuding grace, charm, and a hint of mischief, as if it were simply part of her routine favor. One day, unable to contain her excitement, June called her parents in Shanghai to share the news.
You won't believe it,
She said, her voice bubbling joyfully.
We have everything here. They peel off cabbage leaves at the supermarket and toss them out to make the vegetables look better. I pick them up for free and use them to make pickles. And the ribs. They leave so much meat on them. And soup bones, too. There's so much flavor left in them.
She laughed as she spoke, animated and proud, imagining how impressed they'd be. But on the other end of the line, silence. Then the faint, unmistakable sound of weeping.
Our poor daughter.
Her mother finally whispered through tears.
Living in America, in that capitalist country, forced to survive by picking through discarded vegetable leaves, salvaging bones. She had a good job in Shanghai.
They were devastated.
She had a good job in Shanghai.
Her father added, his voice thick with sorrow.
A stable position, a decent life. Why did she have to leave? Why go abroad at all?
They didn't hear ingenuity. They heard humiliation.